Students and my dear friends, myself HR Chaudhary, working as assistant professor, Department of CSE Engineering College Ajmer. So today we will discuss about test metrics. So we'll look at first topics to be covered in today's lecture. Uh, what is test metrics? Important factors of testing metrics, software testing metrics life cycle. Then we'll look at the types of testing metrics, and in the last we'll look at the example of test metrics. So now we started first slide. What is test metrics? So we can see here the definition. Software testing metrics is defined as a quantitative measure that helps to estimate the progress and the quality of a software testing process. So it is basically the measure of quantitative quality and quantitative that can help us to estimate the progress and the quality and the health of the software testing effort. Metrics has the certain kind of standard of measurements, or test metrics provides the visibility into the readiness of the product, and gives clear measurement of the quality and the completeness of the product. Metrics allow for a deeper understanding of the performance of the application and its behavior, or metrics help organization to obtain the information it needs to continue improve its productivity, reduce errors, and the improve acceptance of processes, or it may be product and services, and achieve the desired goal. The metrics is a measurement based technique which is applied to the process and product and the services to supply the engineering and the management information, and working on the information supplied to improve the process, product, and the services. If required, software testing metrics are experimental measure that could be used to measure the different characteristics of a software system or the software development process. If we talk in recent years, software testing technologies have emerged as a dominant software engineering practice, which help in effective cost control, quality improvement, time and risk reduction, a lot of other things. We need metrics because it help us in understanding the types of improvement required and help in taking decisions on the process or technology change basically. The importance of the metrics is to improve the quality and the productivity of products and the services through the customer satisfaction, and metrics provides the enhancement for the current processes also. So that's why this is the software metrics basically. Now we look this next slide is the important factors regarding the testing metrics. We can see here the important factors that start from one. The only data is composed that needs to take decisions, or the aimed approach. So in software testing metrics, we only compose those kind of data that may change or that may provide certain kind of decisions. And the second case, we can look at the second point. The data which is imprecise must be avoided, and the complex data must be handled accurately. So the data which is not required should be avoided, and the complex data must be handled very carefully. And the third step, important factor, the decisions are not based exclusively on the data that is variable or can be manipulated. So definitely it is true. And the fourth factor is metrics should be selected on the significance of the stakeholder rather than the ease of data collection. So it should keep in mind all the stakeholders when we are selecting the metrics and the factor for the metrics. And the fifth factor, we can see the difficult metrics data must be handled vigilantly, because it is very important. On the basis of those metrics factors, we are going to compare the quality of the software, so it should be handled very vigilantly. Now we move forward. Next is software testing metrics life cycle. So we can look at the different steps are there if we for the software metrics life cycle. The step 1, there are total 8 steps are there. Step 1 is identifying the right metrics, and the second one is define and classify the metrics. The third one is identify the data capturing mechanism, and the fourth one is communicating the stakeholders. The fifth one is capture and verify the data. The sixth one is analyze and the process the data. Seventh is reporting metrics, and the eighth one is improving the metrics. So we start now step 1, that is identifying the right metrics. So identifying the right metrics can be done by the certain kind of things, that may be with the deciding the spectators. It can be done by the classifying the metrics which confine the status of each type of testing, or it can be done by the setting up easy mechanism for data collection, or it can be done by evaluating the value of each metrics, and it can also be done by discovering the problems on or area where the necessity is required. So these kind of things through which we can identify the right metrics. Then second one, we look at the define and the classify metrics. So in this we provide the definition of each matrix, then we characterize the goal for each matrix. After that we verify the goals are realistic by comparing them with the industry standards, and in such a way we can classify and define the different kinds of metrics. After that we move at the identify the data capturing mechanism. In this we have to identify the different kinds of data capturing mechanism are available. So we have to identify a certain kind of data capturing mechanism that can be done. The data is classified into base and the derived matrices. So base matrix for the which data can be captured directly, or derived matrix derived from the base matrix. So after identifying the matrix, the source of the data for each base matrix must be identified, and after that we characterize the common outlines for capturing all base matrix, and in the last we obtaining the feedback from the team which captures the data. So these are the techniques through which we can do this thing. After that the communicating the stakeholders, communicate the need for metrics to the all pretensions teams, and then we obtain the feedback from the stakeholders. In the last we prepare the testing team concerning the data points that needs to be captured for generating the matrices. So these kind of things, if following these steps we can do this communicating the stakeholders. After that we look at the step 5, capture and verify the data. It is very important step. It can be done by ensuring the data capturing mechanism is set up and rationalized. Proper guidelines are to be given to the team members on the data that is essential. We should set up the verification points to ensure all data is required, and we should confine data that is easily accessible to all team members. So these are the things that we should keep in mind when we are moving for the data capturing and verifying the data. Then we move forward at the analyze and the process the data. Once the data is being captured, the data needs to be analyzed for completeness. So the authorities whether the data is filled accurate and up to the date. We should authenticate all kind of data, that data are correct or not. Then we should calculate all the metrics based on the base matrix and other kind of things. And the last we should verify whether the metrics are conveying the right information or not. After that we move at the 7th step, that is the reporting metrics. In the reporting metrics we obtain the feedback from the stakeholders. Then we metrics should be presented based on the audience and in the steady format. Then after we look at the report should contain the review of the annotations, and it should clearly point out all the issues. On based on the request, user should be able to access the data. So these are the things which we have to do perform in the reporting metrics. And the last, improving the metrics. So in the last, we continue upgrading is the key to success for any process. Definitely, we know very well. So frequently accumulate feedback from the stakeholders, and the metrics report must accessible to everyone. So everybody can give certain kind of feedback, and definitely we could learn from those kind of feedbacks. And we should evaluate new metrics to capture, and we should refine the report template. So these are the things which we implement in the improving of the metrics. So these are the steps through which a metrics testing metrics life cycle can be performed. Now we move next. There are different types of testing metrics are there. So we can have a certain kind of or metrics here. We can see here the base testing metrics, and the calculated, second one is the calculated testing metrics, and the third one is organizational testing metrics, the fourth one is project testing metrics, the fifth one is process testing metrics, and the product testing metrics. Now we start from what does it mean, the base testing metrics. So in the base testing metric, it is also recognized a direct measure of quality of the software. A direct metrics is a metric that does not depends upon a measure of any other attributes, or we can say it constitutes the refined data gathered by 10 engineers, although the testing efforts. They also provide the project status report to the test leader and to the project manager, and also provide the input data to feed into a formulas used to derive the calculated metrics. So example, the test cases are the base test matrices. Now we look at the second one is a calculated testing matrix. It is also recognized as an indirect measure. They convert the base matrix data into useful information, and the calculated testing metrics are equipped by the test leader and is used to track the progress of the development at the different levels, like at we can look at the module level, tester level. They also provide some valuable information that when used and implemented oftentimes leaders to considerable improvement in overall SDLC, that is software development life cycle. Then after we look at the organizational testing metrics, metrics at the level of organizations are useful in overall project scheduling and the management. Some of these metrics are obtained by aggregation the tuned metrics across multiple projects. Organizational level test plan needs to integrate the metrics to make the testing activities discriminable, obtain and process improvements. So this is the organizational testing matrix. Now project testing matrix. In project testing matrix, it is relates to the precise project, and these are the useful in monitoring and control of explicit project. The ratio of actual to intent system task efforts is one project matrix. uh, the project matrix has a certain kind of steps that maybe the identify the matrix pattern, target goals, and ask question allied to the matrix. It can select matrix and standardize definitions. Then we choose as a model and establish a continuous criteria, decide on the decision criteria, it define the reporting mechanism, or it establishes the additional qualifiers, or it accumulates the data and consider the human factors. So at the start of the system test phase, for example, the project manager estimate the total system test efforts. The ratio of the actual to estimate efforts is 0 prior to the system test phase. This ratio builds up over time, and tracking the ratio assists the project manager in allocating test resources. So the project testing metrics have certain kind of do's and don't do's. The do's may be provide feedback and select metric based on goals, or focus on the process, product, and services. If you talk about don't do's, so they may be the ignore the data and use only one metric and the major individuals. So these are the things that may be don't use. So this is the project testing metrics. Now we talk about the process testing metrics. Reliable process metrics need to be quantify aspects of the process or output of the process that are aligned to business strategy and corporate goals. The Big Bang approach is one process sometimes used in a relatively small single person project, or process metrics by themselves can provide for uh, uh, establishment for a baseline performance, or it can be tracking of the performance, or it can be communication about the performance, or it can be the identifying areas for improvement, or there are various key steps developing the process metrics, maybe like defining the boundaries for the process, define the output for the process, what explicitly is produced, who is the stakeholder of the process, and what are the specific requirements, who are the supplier to the process, or what inputs they deliver. Develop process metrics based on stakeholder requirements. We should ensure that the data for the process metrics is obtaining and consistent, and design a process that will create an output for the stakeholders and is linked to the organizational goals. So these are the things that can be done. We can implement the process metrics. Then in the last we look at the product testing metrics. The product metrics relate to the specific products such as compiler for the programming language, or these are the useful in making decisions related to the product. Product metrics illustrate the uniqueness or uniqueness for the products such as size, the complexity, design, feature, performance, and the quality level. The product metrics characterize some aspects of the structure of the software product, or such as the requirement specification, or it can as a design or the source code, or commonly they're commonly known as the complexity matrix also, because it has a certain kind of complex design. If we develop a good product metrics, then we should keep in mind certain things. We should keep in mind, we should define the test coverage and quality related objective for the product, or we consider questions about the effectiveness, the efficiency with the which the product is achieving those objectives, or we should formulate the quantifiable metrics for each effectiveness and efficiency. We determine the rational goals for each metric, so that there is a high level of confidence in the quality can be developed. We should monitor the evolution towards the goals and formative product states. So these are the things which can be we should keep in mind when we are developing the product metric. The product metrics can be categorized into two parts. One is static metric, or another is dynamic metric. If we talk about static metrics are those computed without having to execute the product. For example, the number of testable entities in an application. If we talk about the dynamic metrics, it requires code execution. Example, we can say that the average number of the testing working on a project is a static project metric, or the number of defects remaining to be fixed could be treated as the dynamic metrics, that it can be computed accurately only after the code change has been made and the product retested. So these are the things, the types of product metrics. So these are the certain kinds of testing matrices that we can have. Now we'll move forward to the next slide, that is the example of test matrix. So if you want to understand in a simple way the test matrix, we can consider an example. If suppose we want to calculate the percentage test case executed, so to obtain status of the test cases, or we want to calculate the percentage test executed, we can have this formula where we can see the percentage tests executed can be calculated the number of test cases executed divided by total number of test cases written into 100. So using this formula we can calculate the percentage test cases, and in same way we can also calculate the other parameters like test case not executed, or test case passed, or test case failed, and the test cases that are blocked. So in such a way we can calculate for every parameter the test matrix. So this is the chapter is over now, test metrics. Thank you.